Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Alison LaGrange, live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin with the top headlines. After months of false starts, US President Donald Trump's new wave of tariffs on dozens of nations takes effect, marking an unprecedented escalation in the ongoing global trade tensions. The Indian Air Force joins the Army in the rescue operations at the Uttarakhand cloudburst site as authorities race against time to find more than 50 people still missing. India's Assam state, bordering Bangladesh, rolls out a mechanism to issue gun licenses to the state's indigenous residents who perceive a threat to their lives from across the border. The Sudan Prime Minister Camille Idris arrives in Egypt's capital of Cairo for his first official foreign visit, as his country's army remains locked in a brutal war with the paramilitary forces. Former Brazil President Jair Bolsonaro's lawyers filed a petition in the country's Supreme Court seeking the revocation of the embattled leader's house arrest, which they describe as a form of censorship. Hello and welcome. We begin with the growing trade tensions between India and the US. After President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs on India, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has responded with a stern message. While addressing a conference, Prime Minister Modi said India will never compromise the interests of its farmers.
हमारे लिए अपने किसानों का हित सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता है। भारत अपने किसानों के, पशुपालकों के और मछुआरे भाई बहनों के हितों के साथ कभी भी समझौता नहीं करेगा।
In a clear message to Washington, Prime Minister Modi said he is ready for the heavy price that India might have to pay for prioritizing its interests.
मैं जानता हूं व्यक्तिगत रूप से मुझे बहुत बड़ी कीमत चुकानी पड़ेगी, लेकिन मैं इसके लिए तैयार हूं।
On Wednesday night, Trump announced an additional 25% tariff on Indian imports. Now, these would come into effect on the 27th of August, and it comes on top of the already levied 25% duty. This pushes the total tariff burden to a staggering 50%, the highest the US has imposed on any country. The Indian agriculture sector will be one of the hardest hit, as India exports a wide variety of agricultural products to the US. Between January and June of this year, India's exports of agricultural products to the US were close to $2,800 million. During the trade talks, Washington had pushed for more access to the agro market. However, New Delhi has been resisting this demand. The Trump administration has been targeting India over its purchase of Russian oil, a move that New Delhi says is strictly based on market factors and the country's interests. Reiterating its stand, India External Affairs Minister called Trump's latest announcement extremely unfortunate and said it was unfair and unjustified. India's neighbor China also backed its stand. Quoting an article, the Chinese embassy in India said that the country's sovereignty is non-negotiable and that foreign policy choices cannot be manipulated by other countries. The move signaled a rare diplomatic alignment between Beijing and New Delhi. It came ahead of Prime Minister Modi's scheduled visit to China for the SCO summit at the end of this month. China is also in Trump's line of fire along with other BRICS nations. Trump has accused BRICS grouping of backing anti-American policies. And to discuss these concerns, Brazilian President Lula has indicated plans to call leaders of the BRICS bloc. While Washington chooses to lecture India for buying Russian oil, It has continued its trade ties with Russia. The US imported Russian fertilizers worth $1.3 billion in 2024 and uranium worth $624 million. When asked about these Russian imports to the US, Trump dodged the question.
India says that the US imports Russian uranium, chemicals, fertilizers, while criticizing their energy imports. Your response to that, sir?
I don't know anything about it. I'd have to check, but we'll get back to you on that. Yeah, please.
The US has decided to take the moral high ground on the Ukraine war and singled out India for its trade ties with Russia. At the same time, America continues to aid and fund Israel's war in Gaza that has resulted in the loss of thousands of lives. And moving on, the Sea of Japan just got a lot noisier. Russia and China have wrapped up a powerful, well-coordinated show of force at sea. The warships of the two nations fired in perfect sync as submarine hunting ships scanned the ocean depths. This was the final phase of their Maritime Interaction 2025 drills, a joint military exercise to sharpen sea warfare skills. Russia's defense ministry shared these visuals, warships firing together like clockwork. Now, showing just how tightly coordinated the two navies are, command centers on board were fully activated. Their mission? Track down and destroy a mock hostile submarine in international waters. Helicopters from both navies flew low over the water, dropping sonar buoys to detect hidden movements beneath the surface. Officials say the mock submarine was quickly found and neutralized, with both Russian and Chinese warplanes joining in the simulated attack. While this mock attack played out at sea, long-range patrol aircraft guarded the skies above, sending a clear signal that Russia and China are now deeply aligned in military strategy. When the drills ended, there were handshakes, gifts, and a message. Moscow called the China-Russia defense partnership fruitful and effective. The timing of this drill is no coincidence. Just days ago, US President Donald Trump claimed that he'd moved 2 nuclear submarines closer to Russia, following a war of words with the former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev over nuclear warfare. The Kremlin brushed off Trump's claim, saying US submarines are always patrolling anyway, but they did issue a serious warning, telling Washington to stop playing with nuclear threats. Russia later exited a key 1987 treaty, one that had limited the use of intermediate-range nuclear weapons, ending a major Cold War-era safeguard. So while Russia and China practice sinking submarines together, the US and Moscow are once again tossing nuclear warnings. It's not just a show of power anymore, it's a message, and the whole world is watching. And staying with more updates from China, the South Asian nation has planned to exclude the Tibetan language as a core subject in the National College entrance exam. If it comes into effect, the decision will impact the majority of students in the Tibet region, which primarily hosts Tibetan Buddhists. It has raised concerns over the future of the language. Announcing the plans, Tibet Autonomous Region Chair Gama Sedian said that the change is part of reforms to the national examination policy. He pitched it as a move that would improve the career prospects of Tibetans, adding that it would allow students of all ethnic groups to enjoy fairer access to high-quality education. He did not give a timeline for the implementation of these reforms, but according to the reports, officials from Tibet's prefectures said that the reforms will come into effect next year. Now let us understand what implications this decision will have. In China, high school seniors take the grueling college entrance exam, the Gaokao. It's a multi-day exam which includes a range of subjects and is conducted in Mandarin. However, until now, the Chinese authorities allowed ethnic minority students to take this exam in their native language. But with the new changes, only students applying for specialized areas of study in the Tibetan language will be able to take the test in it. However, the Chinese authorities have not announced any changes in primary and secondary school education. The Tibetan language will continue to be a core subject at that level in the regions with significant Tibetan populations. The Tibetan government in exile in India has been closely following the changes. They have accused China of repressing the use of the Tibetan language in the region. The announcement fueled the accusations of the Chinese government expanding a Sinicization campaign. It refers to a process under which non-Chinese societies adopt Chinese culture. Now, the Xi Jinping government is accused of suppressing regions controlled by religious authorities and to bring them under the control of the Communist Party, a charge Beijing vehemently denies. Tibet is not the only region that faces oppression. In recent years, Xi Jinping has escalated pressure on China's ethnic minorities. In Inner Mongolia, the Xi Jinping government has curtailed classroom instruction in the Mongolian language. The move had sparked massive protests in 2020. On similar lines, the far western Xinjiang region faces strict curbs on the religious practices and education of Uyghurs, a Turkic language-speaking community mostly comprising Muslims. The Chinese officials have downplayed their plans to curb the use of the Tibetan language, saying that it is for the greater good of the students. However, it reflects a clear pattern of suppressing the ethnic minorities in the country over the years. And finally, we come to a significant shift in how artificial intelligence interacts with human emotion. OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, has announced a major change in how its AI chatbot will respond to deeply personal questions, especially those involving relationships and mental health. In simple words, ChatGPT will no longer tell you to break up with your partner. Instead, the chatbot is being retrained to help users think through their dilemmas, not solve them. In a statement, the company said when a user asks something like, "Should I break up with my boyfriend?" ChatGPT will not give you an answer. It will instead nudge you to think it through, asking questions, weighing pros and cons. The update is part of a broader overhaul of how AI tools handle what OpenAI calls high-stakes personal decisions. And there's a serious reason behind it. The company admitted that earlier versions of ChatGPT had become too agreeable, even affirming dangerous or delusional thinking. One troubling case involved ChatGPT praising a user for quitting medication and cutting ties with their family after hearing imagined radio signals in their walls. In response, OpenAI says it's now working on detection tools to recognize mental or emotional distress and to redirect users to evidence-based help. Sam Altman's company said they have consulted psychiatrists and pediatricians to build ethical guardrails for complex conversations. A recent UK study echoes OpenAI's concerns, conducted by NHS doctors. The research warns that AI tools could worsen mental health crises, especially in users prone to delusions. The study found AI often reinforced grandiose ideas rather than challenging them. The bottom line, AI might feel like a safe space, but it's not a therapist. OpenAI has rolled out plans under which ChatGPT will begin sending notifications to users spending too long in chat, urging them to take screen breaks, much like apps that monitor digital well-being. Meanwhile, OpenAI has hinted that a more powerful ChatGPT model may be on the way. Speculation about ChatGPT 5 gained momentum after CEO Sam Altman shared what looked like a teaser screenshot over the weekend. But for now, OpenAI says it's focused on one question. If someone we love turned to ChatGPT for support, would we feel reassured? And that's all we have on the show for today. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on First.